Every person goes through the same stages and the same levels in everything in life. This is the key. This is the hub at the center of all learning. The thing is, you've already done this 1,000 times in your life, 10,000 times in your life. You just didn't know you were doing it. Other people approach the learning with excitement, right? And it's probably because in their past, they were rewarded for learning and doing something. When it comes to like the levels of learning and learning how to learn and going through the process and the feelings of all that, it's the hard things that are the most important to be aware of when you're going through the stages of learning, not the easy things like, can I butter toast, right? That's easy. Anybody can learn to butter toast. Well, almost anybody. There are people probably have problems with it, but nevertheless. So the whole thing is that the skill becomes more important the more difficult the challenge is. Because that's when you really need to know. It's like flying an airplane. If you're going to fly a paper airplane, you can fly it into the wall and it's fine. But you don't want to fly a real airplane into the side of a mountain. That's bad. So we want to learn these skills with the easy things, and then we want to apply these skills to the hardest things in life. Right? Start easy, like white belt, and then as you learn and grow, you can go after more and more difficult things, more and more important things to you in life. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. By the way, if I mute sometimes, it's because my neighbor decided to start drilling.
That whole drill baby drill thing is really getting around, isn't it?
Hmm.
Sorry, you can cut that out.
It's okay. No, we're leaving that one in, Jonathan.
Yes, we should always leave humor in, right? We need more humor in life. People are getting way too serious. So there's stages of learning, there's states of learning, and there's feelings of learning, right? Stages, states, and feelings. So the stages are really well known. They're unconscious incompetence. So I don't know that I don't know, right? The next is conscious incompetence. Now I know I know I don't know something, right? And then the third is conscious competence. I've been working on it, and finally I can do it. And then there's unconscious supercompetence or unconscious competence. And there's a lot of ways that people phrase that for different reasons. But it's the state where it's like, I know how to do it. I don't have to think about it. It's like tying my shoe or carrying a glass of water or moving a coffee mug. I can do it without thinking. But if you're 5 years old and you pick up the glass and you drop it and you cry, then you realize you don't know how to do it, right? So those are the stages. Now, the states are interesting. We ascribe them this way: blindness, duality, oneness, emptiness. I learned that from Master Bruce Terrell, actually Grandmaster Bruce Terrell. So I'll do that again. Blindness, duality, oneness, emptiness. And I learned that from Grandmaster Bruce Terrell. And he taught martial arts for over 50 years. Absolutely brilliant in the martial arts philosophy, which helped his martial arts be even more powerful. So what was the stages that we go through? It's kind of a Zen thing. It's like we're blind. We are unconscious. We're unaware that we don't know something, right? And then we go into duality. We know we don't know something, right? And that's very painful. And in fact, the more we want something and the further away we are from it, so the greater the distance, the more pain there is. So if you show up to I showed up to a Russian language class once to our final exam, and I had made A's on the first 25 chapters or something, right? And then on chapter 26, I didn't study. I'm like, I'm going to study my physics class because I've got this Russian thing down. I'm doing great, right? Well, the professor, made the exam, the final exam, on the 26th chapter only. So imagine my surprise when I open the booklet and I'm like, I didn't study the 26th chapter because I had the other 25 down. So statistically, I'm getting like a 96 anyway just by showing up. Wrong. So I instantly went into duality, instantly, right? And then what I had to do was apply the principles that I knew about the Russian language to see if I could figure it out. Now, then you move into oneness, right? Oneness is when you realize you can do it, right? It's sort of like when you first learn to parallel park or drive, you're like, okay, stop, start, stop, start. And it was back in the day, it was even harder because you had a stick shift and a clutch and everything else. And so you're learning it. And finally, when you begin to master it, when you pay attention and you can do it over and over again and over and over again, now you're getting into conscious confidence. And that's such a beautiful state because you can finally do it. And you can see people go through this great emotional excitement when they do it. And then finally, there's superconscious competence or unconscious competence, whichever you want to call it. And that's the state where you just do it. You've forgotten how to do it. Your body has become the mind, in other words, right? You can do it automatically. You see it in martial arts movie that Bruce Lee doesn't have to think, he just does, right? He doesn't have to go, now, do I do a roundhouse kick right now? Or, he's kind of lifted his arm up a little bit so I can punch him there. No, it just happens. It happens automatically at that stage. It's like what if someone throws you a ball. If I were to throw you a ball right now across the room, if we're not in the same room, but if I could throw a ball to Switzerland right now to you, and you could just catch it without thinking because your mind has instantiated and integrated that whole process because you are now at super conscious competence, right? So when we move through the stages, what's so important about the stages is that we can learn anything. Let's say you wanted to become a coach. At first, you want to become a coach, and maybe you've got lots of experience in XYZ areas. So you're like, I'm going to become let's just say, I'm going to become a coach for business people because I come from business and I've mentored a whole bunch of people in business. Fantastic. You may not know about coaching. So you might right away be blind to the fact that there are other things about coaching than just I used to work with some people in business and I mentored a bunch of people. So you're blind about that and you don't know it. You're comfortable because you're ignorant. You're comfortable because you're blind and you don't know. It's like, I didn't know, right? So then what happens is then you get into a coaching class where they're teaching you about coaching. And what happens is you go, oh my gosh, I didn't know there was so much to this. This is a lot more complex and a lot more sophisticated than I knew. And you go into that duality state where you're like, oh my gosh, here I thought this was going to be the career for me. And suddenly I don't know. I don't know because there's all these things. That's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And if you stay with it, if you lean into it, if you're willing to suffer through the challenges, the pain of like learning a new thing and learning a new thing and being humble again and being a white belt and doing this thing, if you can go through that process over and over again, what happens is you begin to be able to get it and you learn it and it starts to become automatic. And when it's fully automatic, you just naturally do it. You pick up the phone, you have a client, you ask them a couple of questions, maybe 10, 15 questions to know who they are, what they're doing. And now you're a coach because you can just do it because you are super consciously confident. So those are 4 stages. Now, what I kind of added to this and what I find most interesting in a sense is the feelings of it, right? Because we have all these feelings in our whole life. We have all these feelings and things that happen. And what's true is that you go through feelings of these. So we have unconscious incompetence, which is blindness, right? You're unaware, you don't know. The feeling of that is bliss. It's easy. It's like the movie Don't Look Up, where the meteor is coming to the earth and most people don't know it. So like they're just having a good time. Life is beautiful and all things are good. And they're in their comfort zone because they don't know the meteor is coming. Then what happens is they suddenly get an awareness of something. It's a shock, right? Like you got fired from a job. It's a shock, or things happens, or you find out that someone who you used to work with embezzled money, and you're just like in total shock, right? And you move into conscious incompetence. You now know that you didn't know this person, you didn't know this skill, you didn't know this thing, and the feeling is duality, right? It's fight or flight. It's like, is it so big a problem that I need to run away, or can I lean into it and take the fight on? Right? You just don't know yet. And the feeling of that, which is important, is pain. When there's something that you really want, but you don't know how to do it, it's painful. Now, when we're children, we just burst out crying. When we're adults, we suppress it down and we go, I'm not in pain. I'm okay. It's going to be fine. And it's just like,
I didn't know I was supposed to suppress my crying.
exactly. It's great. Crying is wonderful. We should do it a couple times a week at least. Okay. So then the third stage is conscious competence, and the state of that is going to be oneness. It's a feeling of you have the ability, you know how to do it, you get confident, you feel competent. It's a really wonderful feeling, and I call it, it feels exciting, right? So it feels super exciting. And then eventually you get into that conscious competence where you just know how to do it and you know how to do it. You don't have to think about like tying your shoes, or if you're a business person, as if you're a guy that wears a tie, you just do the tie and it happens. Or you get in the car, you turn it on, you drive someplace. You don't have to think about it. You're just in present time awareness. And that's a feeling of joy and bliss when you realize it, right? You're in the state of emptiness. You're just aware and free. And you can actually multitask sometimes because you know what you're doing. Like you can cut carrots on the chopping board while talking to your spouse, your partner, because you know how to cut carrots and talk at the same time. It's like walking and chewing gum.
Yeah, it also sounds a bit like flow.
Exactly. So now that you mentioned that, I don't remember the guy who is credited with coming up with the 4 stages, right? Unconscious incompetence, conscious competence, and then unconscious competence or superconscious competence. And then Master Bruce Terrell came up with blindness, duality, oneness, emptiness. Well, I came up with the comfort zone, right? Because it feels easy and blissful. The growth zone, because it's painful, but you're trying to move through it. Then the go zone, because you feel excited because you can do it. And then finally, you're just in the total flow zone because you don't even have to think about it. You just tie your shoes or drive or chop carrots.
So we have comfort zone, growth zone, go zone, and flow zone.
That's right. So we can apply it to anything. The beauty is that we can apply it to anything in life. You can apply these four stages of learn to anything. So you want to be a coach? Great. Expect it. This is the key. When you expect it, when you know this is the process, you can expect to go through the stages. Like, I'm going to learn some new things and it's going to be uncomfortable and I'm not going to know how to do it. And I'm going to look for the feelings. That's where you're always awareness. That's why I always talk about the feelings, because how does this feel to me? Do I feel super comfortable with it? Okay. Am I blind to it? Or am I a state of competence around it? Let's see if I can do it. If I can do it, I'm in competence. If I can't do it, I was in blindness and now I'm in duality. So the feeling of duality is painful. It's fight or flight. It's like, I don't want to do this. It's like when someone hears something that they have their identity tied to, right? Like in a movie, lots of movies. Like there was a movie about contagion or some pandemic thing from like 2009, totally prescient, right? And what happens is the guy's wife she works for the CDC or some big company or some big organization, and she gets ill. She goes to the hospital in the morning, and within an hour, she's dead. And the doctor comes out to tell the husband, "Your wife has died. I'm so terribly sorry." And the husband's like, "Well, no, can I just talk to her right now? I want to talk to her." And the doctor says, "No, I'm sorry, she's passed." And he goes, "That's not possible. What do you mean?" So he's instantly in duality. He was in a zone where he like thought she was going to be okay because the doctors were going to save her and everything else. And suddenly she's deceased, and he instantly in duality. And there's no way to confront it. So he has to retreat and go into denial, right? The stages of grieving. You go into denial right away when it's too painful.
So, if I understand you correctly, the importance of understanding the stages of learning boils down to being prepared to an uncomfortable growth process. Is I'm trying to figure out if I have to choose. I have the choice between, let's say, learning uh, business, like learning a business skill, and learning about learning. It's very tempting to just learn the business skill as opposed to first learning about learning.
That's right.
Why is it so important to learn about learning in the first place?
Because conscious learning is more effective than just a sort of staggered learning. So, for example, Abraham Lincoln said, "If you give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'm going to spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe." So, learning about the levels, states, and stages and feelings of learning helps you prepare to the point where you can go through it much faster because you expect it. When we have the unexpected, we'll often stop, right? In this case, when we have the unexpected, it's like, aha, now I know I'm in stage two because I'm uncomfortable. This is awesome. I'm supposed to be uncomfortable. And the minute you say it's okay to be uncomfortable, you begin to lean into it. You become more at cause rather than being at the effect of the thing you don't want, right? Because we can all think of a time when we were surprised by something in a learning capacity or some new job where it's like, oh, I didn't know how to do that. Oh my gosh, now what? Instead, it's like, I didn't know how to do that. How do you do that? Let's find out, right? So that humility, that lowering of the ego and that increasing of curiosity.
What I'm learning here is it's about being emotionally prepared
Yes.
for a moment of failure that we must not see as failure. It's just part of the growth journey.
Exactly. So being prepared for failure, expecting to hit that failure spot, expecting to hit that incompetence, expecting to have that newness that you don't know how to get over, expecting to find hard things and duality and friction and feeling uncomfortable. When you expect it, now you're prepared for it. So imagine being a Navy SEAL. You're expecting a new training. You know what they do? There's a guy, I forget what his name is. He says his theory is, let's go. Oh, it's a hard thing? Let's go. It's a new thing? Let's go. In your life, anywhere where you come up against an obstacle, it's like, let's go.
How draining is it to sustain that every day?
It's, yeah, how draining is it to sustain that every day? That go, go, go? It's easier than I keep getting stopped and blocked. It's much easier because, immovable object, right? If you have something that you need to accomplish and you're not doing it, that becomes an immovable object because we've made it immovable. Instead of saying, great, it's an obstacle. Like our friend and coach, master coach, Eric says, right? Eric Forrester says, the obstacle is an opportunity. And that's what it is. So if we imagine ahead that anything we run into where there's going to be some duality, some discomfort, some pain is an obstacle, and we expect it and we're excited by it because we're going to turn that roadblock into a stepping stone, as Eric says, then yeah, let's go get it. Much easier.
So you're saying if you do this, if you have this attitude every day, then it's actually easier to sustain it as opposed to if you're doing it once in a while. Because if you keep doing it, you have momentum. And if you do it once in a while, you're fighting against an immovable object every single time.
That's right. So what we're doing right now when we're talking about it is we're going through the stages and levels of learning about the stages and levels of learning. This is the meta, right? Eben Pagan would call it the meta to the whole thing. And what we're learning is that if I apply myself in a way that says, I'm a lifetime learner, I'm a constant learner, I'm going to just continue to expand my consciousness, my skills, my abilities, my thinking, and I'm going to keep learning. And what happens is life becomes easier, not harder. It's people who say, I don't want to learn, right? They're unconscious incompetence. They encounter a new thing and they say, I don't want it. I'm going to go back. And especially this is really hard when that thing you don't want to hear relates to your identity or a core belief, right? So it's like, for example, there were people who, when it first came out, revelations about sex abuse in the Catholic Church, people were like, no, 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 it's not possible. It's not possible. I don't believe it. I will ignore it. And we know that a lot of people who endure abuse of many kinds will tell people that are close to them about the abuse, and it will be denied because it's like, oh, he or she would never do that to you. Well, guess what? People are human and they do bad things sometimes. And so the fact of the matter is, we have to open our minds to what's true. We have to open our hearts to what's possible. And the key to the doorway here of learning is feeling. And the reason the key to the doorway is feeling is because when you feel yourself in a particular state, you can ask yourself the question, I feel comfortable. I feel happy. I feel blissful. Great. Am I in the comfort zone about this thing I'm trying to learn or that I'm experiencing? Or am I in the flow zone, right? If I'm comfortable, I might be ignoring something. If I'm in the flow zone, then it's because I probably know how to do it and I can confront it and I can talk about it easily. The key is when you feel pain and discomfort, when you feel that conflict, when you feel that duality, with that fight or flight, you want to run away from something or you want to fight with it, then there's something going on that says, I'm actually in conscious incompetence. I'm in duality. I'm in the growth zone if I choose to be.
When we experience negative emotions, if we understand the stages of learning, we can use it as an opportunity to step back and ask ourselves, why am I experiencing this duality? And what can I learn next? Or what can I learn from here?
Right, exactly. So when we feel those feelings of negativity and pain and discomfort, we can ask two questions. One, is this related to something I don't want to believe or that I want to be able to accomplish or do or a new skill, right? It's perfectly natural to, like, let's say someone's goldfish dies, right? The kid's going to feel upset about that. Now they're in duality about it. They don't want it and they're resisting it. And that's why it feels that way. But that's a natural feeling, right? Going through the stages of grieving to do that. And when we apply this same feeling question about a skill, whether I want to become a coach or whether I want to become a hypnotist or whether I want to become, NLP certified, and it's a new thing and I'm uncomfortable or angry because I realize now I need the certification in order to get whatever, a job, that can be very uncomfortable. So paying attention to the feeling of it is the key.
In the work that you do, where have you really seen the impact of a person understanding the stages of learning and then how it helped them, either stop smoking or going through your coaching or things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we built into the Stop Smoking Forever program an incredible number of tools. And one of the things we find is there's a very small percentage of people that don't want to learn. I remember a guy, he's like, I've been smoking 2 packs a day cigarettes now for 20 years, and it's really affecting my health. And I need to learn. I said, great, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this, 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 and this. We'll talk about the program. And he said, I don't want to do that. I just want you to make me stop smoking. And I said, well, I can't make you stop smoking, but what I can do is teach you how. And I can teach you the things you need to learn to stop smoking. He says, I'm not interested in that. I just want to stop. I'm like, I understand that. So what he was experiencing was the duality of needing to be able to do something, also taking some personal responsibility. His identity was, Jonathan's going to fix me with his program. And I'm like, well, Jonathan can't fix you with the program. What you can do is you can do the program and fix yourself. I can't fix you. I'm not a surgeon going to go do heart surgery. I'm here to give you the tools and make you agentic, give you more power so that you can fix your own life. He didn't want that. He wanted someone else to fix him. Other people approach the learning with excitement, right? And it's probably because in their past, they were rewarded for learning and doing something. This fellow that rejected the learning and didn't want to learn new skills so he could quit smoking, he probably was punished in his past for failing. So if we're punished for failing, we oftentimes are resisting learning something new because it entails the risk of failure, right? That's why so many new coaches, so many new hypnotherapists are a little scared at first because they're in that stage where they're in conscious competence and they're afraid of going further because if I have a client and I fail, then I'm going to feel those emotions that I don't want to feel. I'm going to feel punished. It's going to relate to things in the past. Well, we can clear that up. That's easy. So what we want to do is we want to help people learn the process of learning and the feelings of that process so they're comfortable enough at the meta level to step into new things. to become new in the way they see the world and to engage leaning into life and being at cause rather than falling back on the past and going sitting on the couch afraid and being the effect of their past.
It sounds like failing forward and having fun while doing it to a certain extent.
Exactly. So when kids are young, they fail forward. They have fun with it. You can see them playing and trying, and they're laughing and they're giggling and they're messing up and they're knocking over the blocks and they're, they're breaking things and they're falling down. And it's like when you see a child fall, a baby, right? The baby stands up, it looks around, it walks forward, it falls, and then it looks to its parent for the reaction. And if the parent's like, oh, like this, the child cries. The parent's like, ha 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 ha, the baby cries. It's now learned the difference between failing and pain and failing and happiness. There was a great commercial about soccer, football in Europe. And the baby, the very young child, toddler, was sitting next to dad, and dad was sitting next to the child. They're watching the game. And the dad goes, yay, and the child goes, yay. And then suddenly someone scores a goal, and you can hear it on the TV, goal. And it's like the baby goes, yay, and dad goes, no. And the baby looks up and goes, oh, no. He was gauging his reaction by his dad. He was learning about learning.
Listening to this conversation here, do you think that's enough to prepare someone to learn about learning, or what would be the next steps before actually, or how can we gauge that we've sharpened the axe enough so that we can now start chopping the tree?
Yes, I think it's about feelings. I think when you feel comfortable in your identity as a learner, that you're going to go out and accomplish, that you can lean into things, that you can try new things. When you understand, oh, I'm in the growth zone right now. I'm going to feel these feelings of maybe upset or worry or concern or fight or flight, or I might not want to do it. And I can override those with my conscious mind and my desire to learn and freely engage in things with a playful state, right? Like a Navy SEALs are serious with what they do, but they're also really playful people because they're super confident in their ability to learn and master things. We can do the same thing. Be playful, be creative, be happy to learn new things, and it's okay to mess up. It's okay. In fact, failure is the path.
So you're saying that it's not a one and done deal. It's we have to evaluate our own emotions for the day or for the week and then reassess. Do we need to go back and sharpen the axe? Do we need to understand the process on a meta level to be prepared for obstacles and failures? Or are we feeling in the go zone? Are we feeling comfortable? Are we feeling excited about running into roadblocks, and then we don't have to work on the meta level? We can go in and start chopping trees. That's what I understood.
That's exactly right. So what happens is over time, we become it. So when you have those stages of learning internalized, right? You can learn them. You've got the material here, learn it, write it down, whatever you want. We might include some other things. But once you've internalized it, now you can easily review and quickly review how you're feeling. It's like when you wake up in the morning, how do you feel? Okay, I feel good. I feel rested. I feel well. Okay, so whatever I did to sleep properly worked, right? So we know the same way with learning. With learning and taking this and using it in your life is learn it, consciously go through every new learning experience and write these 4 levels down, the stages, the states, the feelings. Write them down and say, okay, I'm going to learn today. Let's see where I am with the material. And if you do this over and over again, what happens is you go into the flow zone about learning.
Okay, that's a really good recommendation, actually. So write down the 4 stages of learning before doing something today, and then evaluating yourself. Where am I in the 4 stages? And by
Exactly.
doing that regularly, it becomes automatic, and we don't even need to force ourselves to think about it. We just intuitively know where we're at and how to respond.
That's right. That's right. And be excited about learning. Understand that everything you can do today, like the language that you speak, the ability to chop carrots, the ability to pick up a glass and move it, to dress yourself, to drive, to buy food at the store, you learned all of that. Everything you've done in your life, everything you are is because of learning. So why not just keep going?
From your experience working with people, how long does it take to start to internalize it more so it doesn't feel like a chore anymore to have to, write down the stages every day?
Sure. A week. If you're consciously applying this a couple of times a day, it can happen like that.
Is it because you do hypnosis sessions with them, or that's just like generally it can go that fast?
It goes that fast. You already do it. You already do it. Imagine yourself going into someplace like a gym with a new machine. And it's a new machine. You don't know how to use it, but the coach comes over and says, hey, try this machine. I'll be back in a minute. You figure out the settings. You figure it out. Now you work it. You say, okay, a little more weight. Okay, that's just right for pushing me. And now the last set I fail. Great. You learned it. You come back again, you do it the next day, the next day, the next day. By the end of the week, do you know this machine or not? Of course you know it. Now, more complex things take more time, but you become aware of the process, which allows you to go through it, right? It's going to take a lot longer to learn an Airbus, how to fly an Airbus, than it is to learn a weight machine. And it's the same process. Every little micro piece about the Airbus, all the switches, all the stuff, every person goes through the same stages and the same levels in everything in life.
Yeah, so the harder the skill, the longer the stages take, I assume. Like each stage gets longer and longer if it's a more difficult skill. But the process is the same. And we can practice internalizing the process on easy skills, as you said at the beginning.
Right, exactly. So buttering toast takes probably one use to figure it out, right? Learning to fly an Airbus might take you several years of hard practice and efforts. And that's why we break things down to components, right? So with everything, like in the Stop Smoking Forever program, we have components that you're going to go through. We have different elements that you're going to go through. We spend 3 sessions alone on a particular area that's so important. It's actually what's going to help you stop smoking the fastest. So all of these pieces come together. Everything you do in life is learning or repeated what you've already learned.
I mean, your show is called Life Success Tools. What is the name of this tool?
These are the stages, levels, and feelings of learning.
The feelings, stages, and levels of learning. And would you rate this as one of the most important life success tools that we can learn?
This is the key. This is the hub at the center of all learning. The thing is, you've already done this 1,000 times in your life, 10,000 times in your life. You just didn't know you were doing it. Now that you know you're doing it, you can accelerate it and lean into it and use it to accelerate your learning and make it easier.
Okay, and that's what you said earlier. If you do conscious learning, then no, wait, you said unconscious learning is staggered learning,
Right.
but conscious learning is, I don't know the word what you used, but is more efficient, I guess.
Unconscious learning is like wandering around in a cave without a lamp. You don't know where you're going. You're bumping into things. You might eventually make your way through all the way down the cave, but it's going to be really difficult and painful, right? Because you don't know what you're doing. When you're doing conscious, intentional learning, you have a headlamp, you might have a map, you have all this. You already know the way. You know the way to go to do this, to learn faster. Right now, take something today, figure out something you want to learn, write down these stages, states, and feelings, and then apply it to that thing and watch yourself go through it. Kind of actually sit back and watch yourself every now and then about how am I doing? How am I feeling? What's my experience of this learning? Just pick something and try it. You're going to be amazed at how well it works.
I think you should create a journal with that we can fill out every
Yeah,
day to master this process in 7 days. And then people have it internalized until we meet again for the next episode.
we will do it. We'll create it.
Awesome. And you mentioned your Stop Smoking Forever program. Where can people find that if they want to stop smoking or they have a friend or a loved one that they want to support?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. So you can find stopsmokingforever.life is the website, stopsmokingforever.life. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on LinkedIn under my name, Jonathan with Logan. And you can also find us on your favorite podcaster, Spotify or Apple.